other day, I was just casually munching on a piece of dry bread and just got me to thinking, why do I love bread so much? Like, really, really love bread. And why do I love, for that matter, why do I love bakeries? I've got more bakeries saved in my Google Map favorites than bars or restaurants. And bread and pastries are probably also the only things I would queue for. And why do I hate queuing so much? And why did I become such an overthinker? And I guess this led me on a path of reflection. Why am I the way I am? I don't know if you've ever thought that about yourself, but why are you the way that you are? When did the person that you are, or I am, today really begin? And that really was the roots of this project. My sister, Briar, and I would like to introduce you to our upcoming podcast. This is our story. Cue dramatic music. Ba-ba-da-ba. This will be a personal deep dive into our backstory, beginning from the early years and continuing through until the present, provided we and you can stick it out for that long. For those who know us, you may have presumed our backstory to be a little vanilla or maybe too tame for your taste/interest. However, I can promise you there are many experiences and topics to discuss which I think will surprise you. But before we get into any of those, let me first introduce my one-time nemesis, the antagonist in my tale of heroism, and now, against all expectation, my partner in this wee venture. Please welcome my sister Briar to the podcast.
Oh, how can I live up to that intro?
You could never say that. Okay, you could say that I have a touch of the dramatic. Yeah. I don't know where that came from, but hey, welcome to This Is Our Story. It's like I'm welcoming you to my podcast, but really it's ours. Please introduce yourselves to our audience. Tell us a little, kind of give us a brief overview of who you are, where you are, and kind of, I guess, the things you might cover if you stepped into a job interview. And just, if you fail this, then you're out. No job for you.
Well, kia ora koutou, everybody. I'm Briar, as you've heard. I'm 36, so slightly younger than Kieran, nearly 2 years. I'm currently living in New Plymouth on the west coast of the North Island. I work as a teacher in a daycare in early childhood. It's something I've always done my entire life. I've done lots of travel around the world, and more recently, well, I say recently, it's been 5.5 years now, that my partner and I decided to move back to New Zealand to start our life here. So that's sort of a brief.
What's your living situation at the moment?
So we own our own home here in New Plymouth.
Must be nice.
And we have 2 cats and 3 horses. 2 cats and 2 horses. I don't know where the other one came from.
Wishful thinking.
Yeah. We love living here. It's great living under the mountain and the rivers and being by the beach. It's a fantastic lifestyle here. So, yeah, we're really enjoying it.
You've basically just described the ideal New Zealand lifestyle.
That's it. We're living the dream.
Living the dream. I, on the other hand, have a very different and convoluted story. So I am 38 years old. I'm an old bastard. Anyway, I'm currently living in Brisbane in Queensland, Australia. Very long pathway that got me to this particular place, but as you will find out in due time and due course, we started out in the far north of New Zealand. Later on, I left New Zealand in 2009 after finishing some study. Went over to Sydney, spent a year in Sydney doing some random things, and then went to Melbourne, studied in Melbourne for a little bit, was in Melbourne for a year or so, and then did a semester abroad in the UK, and came back to finish off my degree. This is my history and politics degree. Finished that off, got a wee bit bored. I have a tendency towards the adventurous, And we will definitely discuss this in future episodes, my propensity to chase adventure. Anyway, left with my partner at the time, went off to Thailand, of all places, and we were there. Well, we'll get into that, but it was we at first and then just me. And I was in Bangkok for 4 years and then ended up in Singapore after that for a year and a half, was teaching through all this time, working as an English teacher. And then during the hashtag COVID years, went back to New Zealand, was in New Zealand for a couple of years, and family emergency brought me over to Brisbane. So our parents live here up on the coast. And so after many, many years of being in different countries to my parents, I thought it would be a good time to be in the same place as them. And so that's where I am right now. Still very fresh in my Brisbane journey, but yeah, it's another adventure for me. Many, many adventures that we will cover over the course of this podcast. But we have a lot of stories. We've picked up a lot of stories, both you and I, Briar, and having done so much travel and lived in so many different places, and kind of, it feels like for me, I don't know about you, but I've lived many different lives. That's how it feels.
Oh, definitely.
and I guess the point of this project was to try and rediscover them, because every time I've moved on, literally and figuratively, I've kind of left part of myself behind in that chapter, and I've been constantly concerned that I will just literally forget, and I have forgotten many things. And the first time I talked to you about this project was just I just didn't want to forget everything, especially the early years stuff, which is so many chapters ago for me that I just kind of want to put it. It's almost like putting it down on figurative paper before it disappears forever. So I'm quite excited personally about this project, and I think there are some things that are going to be brought out that perhaps we have never talked about before, things that we need to process or understand. And it's a process of thinking aloud almost. And so you may find as listeners that it may be going around in circles a little bit, because it is very much a real-time process for us. But I feel good, like I'm feeling good about that. How about you, Briar? How are you feeling about this project?
Yeah, it's exciting to be able to document it all and like you say, process it, because it's not things that we've really discussed with each other before. So it's all kind of, this journey's new and fresh and raw for us both to revisit, a lot of those things in our past. So sort of a much cheaper version of therapy for us, I guess you could say.
Yes. Although, to be fair, I do encourage therapy for you people out there. If you need it, you go and get it. Some of us can't.
If you can afford it.
I will say at this point that there are some pretty heavy topics that we will be covering at times, and I guess it's good to be aware of that, because it may bring up certain things it certainly will bring them up for us, and something we're aware of as we revisit these things. We can put
trigger warnings, so that you're aware of going into some.
Just so that you're prepared for that. But in my first intro, I talked about the fact that this story is very much unique to us, and we were a little bit worried about this not being of interest to anyone. But I think there's some of the things that we touched on will certainly be experiences that others will have had. Different versions of them, of course, but it's funny that everyone thinks that they're so unique, but really we're all kind of very similar, if not the same, just with different characters in play. So I think it'll be interesting to hear how our listeners react.
And we'd love to hear feedback too, when you hear it, if it resonated with you, or if you think it's funny, or even if you don't, that's cool. But
if it's really boring, you can tell us. I mean, we probably won't listen.
But this journey is more about us, not necessarily about how the other people will view it or hear it. But it would be great to hear feedback on it if you do resonate with it, because that's just a bonus, really.
Yeah. And I guess the last thing I would say is that we're not doing this for the purpose of slamming particular people. We have had some negative experiences that we will want to discuss, and we'll bring up that will perhaps hint and be directed at certain individuals, and there's no intended hurt that comes from that. I don't think either you or I are incredibly bitter people,
No.
but there's just some of our experiences are impossible to talk about without bringing up specific individuals. And obviously we'll keep them anonymous, but it will be necessary for us to talk about those particular experiences.
Yeah.
Anyway, stick with us, and we hope that you'll get something out of this, as I'm sure we will get something out of it for ourselves. But enjoy the journey, and be prepared that it might be a little bit rough in the beginning as we are kind of learning this process. This is a new thing for both of us in more ways than one. So be patient and hang out for the good stuff. But for now, we'll leave it at that and enjoy the journey. So thank you, and you will hear from us again soon.
See you on the next one.
Ciao.